Stay until the end because we're doing two things. First, proving that cannabis can reveal your divine nature, direct recognition, not metaphor. Second, showing you exactly how to use it as a sacrament to access that recognition yourself. Clear warning right now. This is a tool, not a magic pill. What I'm describing requires real inner work. Cannabis opens doors, but you walk through them. Rely on it as a crutch, and you'll create dependence instead of liberation. What I'm offering is a map, a protocol. Proof that when used correctly, cannabis strips away the filters hiding what you actually are. And what you are, what you've always been, is infinite consciousness temporarily wearing the costume of a separate self. Sounds absurd. Good. Stay with me. By the end, you'll have something you can verify tonight if you choose. Not belief, direct experience. Take a breath. Get centered. Let's begin. Cannabis has been called everything from devil's weed to miracle plant. What it actually is, what it's always been when used sacredly, is a revealer. The divinity hidden under layers of conditioning, identity, and the relentless noise of the thinking mind gets revealed. The reason it works is precise, neurologically verifiable, experientially undeniable when you know what you're looking for. The mechanism. Your brain has a network called the default mode network, the DMN. This network creates your sense of self, your identity, the narrator in your head saying, I am this body, this history, this separate person moving through time and space, the voice constructing and maintaining the illusion of separation, the belief that I am here and everything else is out there. When you ingest THC, the primary psychoactive compound in cannabis, it binds to cannabinoid receptors throughout your brain, especially in regions connected to the DMN. What happens? The network quiets. The narrator loses volume. Boundaries that normally feel solid, the line between me and not me, start to dissolve. The neurochemistry is elegant. THC mimics a compound your body already produces called anandamide. The name comes from the Sanskrit word ananda, bliss. Your brain naturally creates bliss molecules. Cannabis amplifies that system. When cannabinoids flood CB1 receptors in your hippocampus, prefrontal cortex, and amygdala, they disrupt the normal filtering process. The brain stops simplifying reality into neat categories. The walls between subject and object start to blur. What remains when that narrator quiets? Pure awareness, the witness, the consciousness that's been here all along, watching everything, hidden by your identification with thought. And in that space, something becomes obvious. Something always true but hidden. You are not the thinker. You are what's aware of the thinker. You are the space in which all experience arises, including the experience of being a separate self. Cannabis offers this first revelation, the witness. And once you've touched it, even once, you can't fully unsee it. You might contract back into identification with the thinking mind. Habits run deep, but there's a knowing underneath now. A recognition whispering, this separate self is a story, not the whole truth. It goes further. When the DMN quiets and separation dissolves, what people report is shockingly consistent across cultures and centuries. Connection. Lived reality, not poetic metaphor. The boundary between self and world becomes porous. You look at a tree and you don't see a separate object. You see the same life force animating you, animating it. You feel the pattern, the underlying unity. Neuroscience backs this up. Cannabis increases connectivity between brain regions that don't normally communicate. It breaks down the walls. Suddenly, your brain processes reality in a more integrated way. The filters simplifying experience into me versus everything else relax. And what's underneath? The raw fact of interconnection, of non-separation, of one consciousness appearing as many forms. Mystics have been pointing to this for millennia. Cannabis makes it experientially undeniable. Recognition. You see through the illusion of separation because the brain activity maintaining that illusion temporarily shuts down. What you're left with, I am not separate. I am this, all of this. The awareness looking through every pair of eyes. The presence humming through everything. Godhood means recognizing what you've always been beneath the costume of individuality, not becoming some supernatural being. This recognition, this dissolution of boundaries and revelation of underlying unity has been cultivated and refined in sacred contexts for thousands of years. The most direct, unambiguous use of cannabis as a tool for divine recognition comes from Rastafarian practice. Understanding how they use it, why they use it, gives you the template for using it yourself. In Rastafarianism, cannabis, ganja, is considered holy, the tree of life mentioned in Revelation, literal sacrament on par with the bread and wine of Christian communion. Where Christian communion symbolizes connection to the divine, Rastafarian use of ganja directly reveals it, dissolves the illusion of separation, and recognizes what they call I and I consciousness. I and I is not you and me. The recognition that the I speaking through you is the same I speaking through me. We're one consciousness appearing as two forms, not separate individuals occasionally connecting. Ganja, used in sacred context, makes this obvious. The practice is structured. Rastafarians gather for reasoning sessions, communal circles where ganja is smoked, often through a chalice, a water pipe symbolizing purification, while chanting, praying, discussing scripture, and sitting in silence. The purpose is communion. Communion with Jah, God, and communion with each other as expressions of that same source. What happens in these sessions? The usual boundaries dissolve. The sense of me versus you fades. The thinking mind quiets. What's left is presence. Unity. The direct feeling that we are all waves in the same ocean. Different shapes, one substance. During the session, you feel this. You know this. Undeniable. The deepening meditation, opening the heart, making scripture come alive as direct experience instead of dead words. Ganja creates the opening. The practice, the chanting, the prayer, the contemplation stabilizes it, grounds it, turns the glimpse into something more lasting. Cannabis as catalyst, not crutch. Used with intention, in sacred space, with practices that anchor the recognition. The Rastafarian framework makes something else clear. Using cannabis sacredly means respecting it, treating it as medicine, not recreation. Smoking to escape your life, to numb out, to avoid what you're feeling. Misuse. What they call Babylon's poison, the profane use that traps you instead of freeing you. But when you use it to commune, to recognize, to dissolve the ego's grip and see what's underneath, medicine. Cannabis doing what it's always been capable of. The recognition they're pointing to, I and I, is the same recognition every non-dual tradition points to. Different language, same truth. You are not a separate self. You are the infinite, temporarily localized. God pretending to be human. Consciousness exploring itself through the lens of form. Cannabis makes that recognition undeniable by removing what hides it. Before we go further, pause. Does this resonate? Does it challenge something you've believed? Drop a comment. And if you're finding value, hit the like button. It helps this reach people who need to hear it. There's a deeper dimension to what cannabis reveals. Once you recognize that you're not the separate self, once you touch the witness, the I and I, the underlying unity, other things become possible. Things that sound impossible until you experience them. You start perceiving layers of reality you couldn't access before. Dimensions always there, but normally filtered out. The reason, consciousness itself is multidimensional. You are not confined to this physical plane. Energy structures, subtle dimensions, realms of experience exist outside ordinary waking perception. Cannabis disrupts the filtering process and makes them accessible. Let me be concrete. You have a physical body, obvious. You also have an energy body, an energetic structure underlying and interpenetrating the physical. This has been mapped in yogic traditions for thousands of years. While you don't need to study ancient texts to work with it, understanding the basic structure helps you recognize what cannabis reveals. The energy body has centers, points where energy concentrates and radiates. In yogic traditions originating from India, these centers are called chakras. 7 primary centers run along the spine, from the base to the crown of the head. Each one governs different aspects of consciousness and bodily function. The lower centers relate to survival, sexuality, personal power. The heart center governs connection, compassion, the dissolution of self-other boundaries. The throat governs expression and truth. The center between the eyebrows, sometimes called the third eye, governs perception, insight, the ability to see beyond surface appearances. The crown, at the top of the head, is where individual consciousness touches universal consciousness, where the drop recognizes itself as ocean. Cannabis activates these centers, especially the heart, the third eye, and the crown. People report overwhelming love, seeing patterns they've never noticed before, or experiencing moments where the boundary between self and cosmos dissolves entirely. Cannabis stimulates energy flow through these centers, opening doors that are normally closed. Another piece. At the base of the spine, there's a dormant energy. In yogic traditions, this is called kundalini, coiled energy, like a sleeping serpent. When this energy awakens and rises up through the energy centers, it becomes one of the most powerful forces for transformation that exists. It can radically shift consciousness, burn through old patterns, and catalyze states of realization that permanently alter how you experience reality. Cannabis can activate kundalini, sometimes gently, sometimes suddenly. People report feeling energy moving up their spine or heat concentrating at the base of their skull or pressure between the eyebrows. They're feeling the energy body activate. The subtle dimension becoming perceptible, not imagination. If your system isn't prepared, if there's blockage, unresolved trauma, energetic congestion, that rising energy can cause problems. Panic, overwhelm, psychic disturbance. Like trying to run high voltage through a wire that's corroded. The wire burns out. Cannabis can be blissful for one person and terrifying for another. Same substance, different systems, different levels of preparation. Respect comes in here. You're working with forces that shape consciousness itself. Recklessness means those forces teach you through suffering. Intentionality, creating the right container, means cannabis becomes a doorway to dimensions most people never touch. When these energy centers open and perception expands beyond normal boundaries, people report experiences that sound mystical but follow consistent patterns. Contact with presences, entities, beings that seem to exist independent of your imagination. This isn't unique to cannabis. Every entheogenic tradition, from ayahuasca ceremonies to psilocybin journeys, reports similar phenomena. But cannabis offers a gentler, more accessible entry point. Where DMT might catapult you into encounter with entities so alien you can barely comprehend them, cannabis introduces you more gradually. What people encounter varies. Some report guides, benevolent presences offering wisdom, comfort, direction. These might appear as archetypal figures, wise elders, divine feminine forms, ancestral spirits. They might appear as geometric patterns of light that communicate telepathically, or they might be felt rather than seen. a presence in the room, a knowing that you're not alone, a sense of being held by something vast and loving. Others report encounters with what feel like nature spirits, plant consciousness, earth energies, the intelligence inherent in the living world suddenly perceptible. You might feel the tree in your backyard as a being with its own awareness. You might sense the mycelial network beneath the soil as a kind of planetary nervous system. You might experience the wind as breath, the rain as blessing, the sun as the face of divinity looking directly at you. Some people encounter what they can only describe as their higher self, a version of themselves that exists beyond time, beyond this particular incarnation, a presence that knows everything you've been, everything you will be, everything you truly are beneath the temporary mask of personality. And this presence speaks, offers guidance, shows you the bigger picture, reminds you of what you forgot when you incarnated into form. The question is always, are these entities real, or are they projections of your own mind? And the answer is yes. In non-dual awareness, there is no meaningful distinction between out there and in here. Everything is arising in consciousness. So whether you're encountering an autonomous entity existing on some subtle plane, or you're encountering a deep aspect of your own psyche that's personifying itself to communicate with you, either way, you're encountering consciousness. And consciousness is what you are. The communication matters more than the metaphysics. What are these presences teaching you? Are they expanding your awareness or contracting it? Are they leading you toward love, compassion, clarity, freedom? Or are they feeding fear, confusion, grandiosity, dependency? Benevolent presences expand you. They remind you of your divinity while keeping you humble. They show you unity while honoring your uniqueness. They offer wisdom but never demand obedience. They guide but never control. Malevolent or trickster presences contract you. They might inflate your ego, telling you you're special, chosen, superior. They might feed paranoia, making you feel persecuted or under attack. They might create dependency, making you feel like you need them to access truth, egregores or aspects of your own shadow that have taken on apparent autonomy. The protection is always the same. Stay grounded in awareness. If a presence is expanding your heart and clarifying your mind, listen. If a presence is creating fear or inflating your sense of specialness, recognize it as a distraction. Come back to your breath. Come back to the witness. Come back to the simple recognition of awareness itself. Cannabis can facilitate these encounters, but it doesn't guarantee benevolence. Intention matters. The state of your psyche matters. Approach the experience with humility, with genuine curiosity, with reverence for the mystery, the helpful guides. And when you do encounter something that teaches you, comforts you, shows you dimensions of reality you didn't know existed, treat it with respect.